The space station floated in the darkness like a small moon. It was called Station Hana, and it was the pride of the human space fleet. The station was big and round, with long arms that reached out into space. Lights blinked on its surface, and ships came and went like busy bees around a hive. Ambassador Tejo stood near the large window of the docking bay. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair at his temples. He had been working with alien species for 20 years. But today was different. Today was special. Today, the Velkai were coming. The Velkai were predators. Real predators. They came from a world where everything hunted or was hunted. Their bodies were covered in short fur. Like big cats from Earth, they had sharp teeth, yellow eyes with narrow pupils, and claws that could cut through metal. The Velkai were proud warriors, and they had never lost a war. But they were not here for war. They were here for peace. Tejo watched through the window as the Velkai ship approached. It was a dark vessel, shaped like a blade. It moved through space, without making any sound. Like a shadow in the night, the ship was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a shark swimming in dark water. "Ambassador, they are requesting permission to dock," said a voice behind him. Tejo turned to see Ensign Bora. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with short black hair and a quick smile. She was new to the station, but she was smart and brave. Tejo liked her immediately when they first met. "Give them permission," Tejo said, "and make sure everything is ready. The Velkai are our guests, and we must treat them well." Bora nodded and spoke into her communicator. A few minutes later, the Velkai ship connected to the station. There was a soft sound as the doors locked together, and then a hiss as the air mixed between the two vessels. Tejo walked toward the docking door with Bora following behind him. His heart was beating a little faster than normal, but he did not show it on his face. He had met many alien species before, but the Velkai were different. They were dangerous. One wrong move, one wrong word, and everything could go bad very quickly. The door opened with a soft sound. Standing on the other side was a Velkai warrior. He was tall, almost 2 meters, with dark gray fur and golden eyes. His name was Kor, and he was the leader of this delegation. Behind him stood several adult Velkai, all looking serious and proud, but Tejo's eyes moved past the adults. Behind them, peeking out from behind their parents' legs, were the cubs. There were 5 of them. They were small, about the size of human children. With big, curious eyes and fluffy fur, their ears were too big for their heads, and their tails swished back and forth with excitement. They looked around the station with wonder in their eyes, taking in every light, every sound, every smell. Tejo smiled. He could not help it. The cubs were simply too cute. "Ambassador Tejo," Kor said in a deep voice, "I am Kor of the Velkai. We come in peace. Welcome to Station Hana," Tejo replied, bowing his head slightly. "We are honored to have you as our guests." Kor nodded, and for a moment, his stern face softened just a little. "I must apologize for bringing the young ones. Their parents wish them to see humans for themselves. Our people have heard many stories about your kind." Tejo looked at the cubs again. One of them, the smallest with white spots on her fur, was staring at Bora with huge eyes. Another cub, slightly bigger with dark fur, was sniffing the air, trying to understand all the strange new smells. "We are happy to have them," Tejo said warmly. "Children are always welcome here." The adults began to move forward, and Tejo led them toward the meeting rooms. The peace talks would take many hours, maybe even days. There was much to discuss between humans and Velkai, but the cubs did not follow the adults. They stopped in the middle of the hallway, looking around with wide eyes. Everything was new. Everything was strange. The lights were too bright. The air smelled funny. The walls were smooth and cold, not rough and warm like the walls of their dens back home. One of the adult Velkai, a female with silver fur, turned to look at the cubs. "They cannot come to the meeting," she said. "They are too young. They will be bored and restless." Tejo understood. Peace talks were long and boring, even for adults. For young cubs with endless energy, it would be torture. Ensign Bora, Tejo said, turning to the young woman. Would you mind watching the cubs while we are in the meeting? Bora's eyes went wide. She looked at the 5 Velkai cubs, who were now looking back at her with equal curiosity. They were predators. Young predators. Yes, but predators still. Their teeth were small but sharp. Their claws were tiny but dangerous. But then, the smallest cub, the one with white spots, made a soft chirping sound. It was the Velkai equivalent of a curious hello. Bora felt her heart melt. Of course, Ambassador, she said. I would be happy to watch them. The silver-furred female approached Bora and looked at her carefully. You are young for a human, she said. But I see strength in your eyes. I trust you with our cubs. But know this, if any harm comes to them, I will find you. The words were simple, but the threat was clear. Bora swallowed hard and nodded. I understand, Bora said. I will protect them with my life. The female Velkai studied Bora for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Good. Their names are Ren, Yira, Cass, Miru, and the small one is Nali. They are curious and full of energy. Do not let them get into trouble. With that, the adults left, following Tejo toward the meeting rooms. Bora stood alone in the hallway with 5 young Velkai cubs staring at her. For a moment, no one moved. Then Nali, the smallest cub, walked forward on her 4 legs. She stopped in front of Bora and sniffed her hand. Her nose was cold and wet, like a cat's nose. Then she looked up at Bora with her big golden eyes. What are you? Nali asked in a small, squeaky voice. Bora laughed. It was such a simple question, but it was also the most important question in the universe. I am a human, Bora said, kneeling down so she was at the same height as the cub. And I am going to show you around our station. Would you like that? The 5 cubs looked at each other. Then, all at once, they started making excited chirping sounds. Their tails wagged back and forth so fast that they almost fell over. Yes, yes, show us everything, shouted Ren, the eldest cub. He was trying to act calm like an adult, but his wagging tail gave away his excitement. Bora smiled and stood up. She had no idea what she was going to do with 5 young Velkai predators. But she knew one thing for sure, this was going to be an interesting day. She started walking down the hallway, and the 5 cubs followed her. They walked in a line, like little ducklings following their mother. Their heads turned left and right, trying to see everything at once. The adventure was just beginning. Bora led the 5 cubs through the long hallways of Station Hana. The cubs walked behind her in a messy line, their eyes moving everywhere at once. They had never seen anything like this place before. On their home world, everything was natural. There were trees and rocks and rivers. There were caves where families lived together. The walls were made of stone and earth, and the light came from fires and the sun. But here, everything was made by hands. The walls were smooth metal. The lights came from strange glowing panels. The floors were so clean that the cubs could see their own reflections. It was like walking in a dream. What is that? Asked Cass, pointing with his paw at a small plant in a pot. That is a plant, Bora explained. Humans like to have plants around. They make us feel calm. Cass walked closer to the plant and sniffed it. His nose wrinkled. It does not smell like the plants on our world. Your plants smell weak. Bora laughed. Maybe our plants are different, but they are still special to us. The cubs continued to follow Bora, asking questions about everything they saw. Why were the walls so smooth? What were the blinking lights for? Why did humans walk on only 2 legs? Did humans have tails hidden in their clothes? Bora answered every question as best as she could. She found herself enjoying the cubs' curiosity. They were young and full of wonder, and they reminded her of human children back on Earth. After walking for some time, they arrived at the recreation deck. This was the part of the station where humans came to relax after work. There were games, books, comfortable chairs, and a large screen on one wall. "This is our fun room," Bora said. "Humans come here to rest and enjoy themselves." The cubs looked around with confused faces. "Where is the hunting ground?" asked Yura, her ears flat against her head. "Where do you chase prey?" "Where? We do not hunt here," Bora said. "We do other things for fun." "Other things?" Ren, the eldest cub, tilted his head. "What things can be fun if there is no hunting?" Bora thought about this for a moment. How could she explain human entertainment to young predators who had grown up chasing prey through wild forests? Then, an idea came to her. "Let me show you," she said with a smile. "Please, sit down." The cubs looked at the soft chairs with suspicion. On their world, sitting in the open was dangerous. Predators only rested in hidden places where enemies could not find them. But this place smelled safe. There were no other creatures here. Slowly, one by one, the cubs climbed onto the chairs and sat down. Nolly, the smallest cub, sank into the soft cushion and made a surprised sound. "It is eating me!" she cried out, her little legs kicking in the air. "No, no," Bora laughed, helping Nolly sit properly. "The chair is just soft. It is comfortable. It is not eating you, I promise." Nolly looked at the chair with distrust but stayed where she was. The softness did feel nice, even if it was strange. Bora walked to the wall and touched a panel. The large screen came to life with bright colors and sounds. The cubs jumped in surprise, their fur standing up and their claws coming out. "What is that?" hissed Miru, his golden eyes locked on the screen. "Is it an enemy? Should we attack?" "No," Bora said quickly, holding up her hands. "It is not real. It is called a movie. It is pictures and sounds that tell a story. Watch." She selected an old Earth cartoon. It was a simple one, made for young children, with bright colors and funny characters. Animals talked and sang and went on adventures. It was silly and happy and completely harmless. The cubs watched the screen with intense focus. Their eyes did not blink. Their ears pointed forward. They tracked every movement on the screen like they were hunting. "The small creature is running," Ren said in a serious voice. "The big creature is chasing it. This is a hunt." "Yes," Bora said slowly. "But it is not real. It is pretend. No one is really being hunted." "Pretend hunting?" Yura looked confused. "Why would anyone pretend to hunt? What is the purpose?" Bora sat down on a chair near the cubs. "For fun," she explained. "Humans create stories to enjoy them. We watch characters go on adventures, and we feel happy or sad or excited with them. It helps us rest and feel good." The cubs looked at each other. This was a very strange idea. On their world, every action had a purpose. You hunted to eat. You rested to save energy. You played as children to learn how to fight. Nothing was done just for fun. But humans were different. Humans did things for no reason at all, except to feel happy. It was confusing, but also interesting. "I like the small creature," Nolly said softly, her eyes glued to the screen. "It is fast. I hope it escapes." "I think the big creature will catch it," Cass said. "It is stronger. Strength always wins." "Not always," Bora said with a smile. "In human stories, the small and clever ones often win against the big and strong ones." The cubs looked at her with shock. This was against everything they knew. On their world, the strongest always won. That was the law of nature. But humans had different stories, different beliefs. The cartoon continued, and the cubs watched with growing interest. They gasped when the characters were in danger. They chirped with joy when the characters escaped. They growled at the villains and cheered for the heroes. Bora watched them with a warm feeling in her heart. Despite being from different worlds, despite being predators with sharp teeth and claws, these cubs were not so different from human children. They loved stories. They felt emotions. They wanted the good guys to win. After some time, Ren turned to Bora with a serious expression. "Ensign Bora," he said, using her formal title like the adults did. I have a question. Yes, Ren? In this story, the creatures talk and wear clothes, and live in homes. But on your world? Do animals act like this? Bora shook her head. No. On Earth, animals are just animals. They do not talk or wear clothes. This is just imagination. Humans like to imagine what the world would be like if things were different. Imagination. Ren repeated the word slowly, like he was tasting it. Your people spend time thinking about things that are not real? Yes, we think it is fun. Ren was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Humans are very strange, he said. But I think I understand a little now. You are not hunters of bodies. You are hunters of ideas? Bora blinked in surprise. That was actually a very beautiful way to put it. Yes, she said. I suppose we are. We hunt for new ideas, new stories, new ways of seeing the world. Ren nodded again, and there was new respect in his golden eyes. Perhaps humans are hunters after all, he said. Just a different kind. The cartoon ended, and the screen went dark. The cubs made disappointed sounds. They wanted more. The story had captured their hearts. And now, it was gone. Can we see another one? Miru asked eagerly. Please, I want to know what happens next. That story is finished, Bora said. But there are many other stories, thousands of them. Humans have been making stories for a very long time. The cubs looked at each other with amazement. Thousands of stories? Their culture had stories too, of course. Tales of great hunts and brave warriors. But they were always about real things that really happened. The idea of making up thousands of fake stories just for fun was almost impossible to understand. Your people are very creative, Yira said thoughtfully. We Velkai focus on the real world. We hunt. We fight. We survive. But you humans, you build worlds inside your minds. Bora nodded. We call it art. It is one of the things we are most proud of. The cubs sat in thoughtful silence for a while. They were learning so much about humans today. These strange, two-legged creatures were not like any species they had ever met before. They were soft and weak and had no claws. But they had something else. They had imagination. And maybe, just maybe, that was a kind of strength too. Nali yawned, her small mouth opening wide to show her tiny sharp teeth. I am hungry, she announced. When do we hunt for food? Bora smiled. We do not need to hunt. I can get food for us right here. The cubs looked at her with disbelief. Food that came without hunting? This was getting more and more strange. But they were curious to see what would happen next. Little did they know, the most amazing thing was still waiting for them. Bora stood up from her chair and walked toward a corner of the recreation room. The 5 cubs watched her with curious eyes, their tails swishing slowly back and forth. They were still thinking about the amazing thing they had just seen, the moving pictures on the screen that told stories for no reason except fun. But now, their stomachs were making noises. They were hungry. On their homeworld, when cubs were hungry, they would hunt small creatures in the forest. Their parents taught them how to stalk, how to pounce, how to catch. Hunting was natural. Hunting was life. But Bora said there was no need to hunt here. The cubs did not understand how that was possible. Bora stopped in front of a large metal box. It was about as tall as she was, with a clear glass front. Inside the glass, the cubs could see small yellow things, like tiny stones or seeds. The machine was silent and still. What is that? Asked Ren, walking closer on his 4 legs. His nose twitched as he tried to smell what was inside. Is it a cage? Are those creatures trapped inside? No, Bora laughed softly. It is called a popcorn machine. And those are not creatures. They are corn kernels. They are a type of seed from a plant. Seeds? Cass tilted his head. You eat seeds? Like a bird? Not exactly like a bird, Bora said. We prepare them in a special way. Watch. She pressed a button on the side of the machine. For a moment, Nothing happened. The cubs stared at the machine with intense focus, ready for anything. Their muscles were tense, their ears were pointed forward. If this machine was dangerous, they were ready to fight or run. Then the machine began to hum. The sound was low and quiet at first, like a sleeping creature waking up. The cubs took a step back, their fur rising slightly. The humming grew louder. Lights on the machine began to glow. And then, inside the glass chamber, something amazing started to happen. Heat filled the chamber. The small yellow kernels began to shake and dance. They jumped up and down like living things, moving faster and faster. The cubs watched with wide eyes, completely frozen in place, and then pop. The first kernel exploded. It burst open and transformed into something white and fluffy, many times bigger than before. The cubs jumped in shock, their claws scratching against the floor. "It exploded!" screamed Nolly, hiding behind Miru. "The seed exploded!" Pop, pop, pop. More kernels began to burst. The explosions were small but loud. White fluffy things filled the glass chamber, jumping and bouncing off the walls. The machine was alive with noise and movement and chaos. The cubs did not know what to do. Their instincts were screaming at them. The sounds were like small prey trying to escape. The white, fluffy things were flying everywhere like panicked creatures. Every instinct in their young predator bodies told them one thing: hunt. Ren was the first to act. He jumped toward the machine, his small claws extended. "The prey is escaping," he shouted. "We must catch them." But there was nothing to catch. The glass kept everything inside. Ren pressed his face against the glass, watching the popcorn fly around. His golden eyes tracked each piece, his head moving left and right. "They are so fast," Yira said with admiration. "I have never seen prey move like this. They can fly." "It is amazing," breathed Miru. "The machine creates prey. It makes them from nothing." Bora watched the cubs with a huge smile on her face. She had seen many people react to popcorn machines before, but never like this. The cubs were treating the popcorn like the most exciting hunt they had ever seen. The popping sounds began to slow down. Pop. Pop. The final kernels burst. And then, the machine went quiet. The glass chamber was now full of white, fluffy popcorn, piled up like snow. The cubs sat in front of the machine, panting slightly from excitement. Their eyes were huge. Their tails were wagging like crazy. They had just witnessed something beyond their understanding. "The machine," Ren said slowly, his voice full of wonder. "The machine gives birth to prey. Without hunting, without waiting. It just creates." "Can we eat them?" asked Cass eagerly. "Are they safe?" Bora nodded. "Yes. You can eat them. That is why we make them. Popcorn is a snack. Humans eat it while watching movies." She opened a small door at the bottom of the machine and scooped some popcorn into a large bowl. The warm, buttery smell filled the air. The cubs' noses twitched. The smell was strange but not bad. It was warm and rich and made their mouths water. Bora held out the bowl. "Here." The cubs looked at each other nervously. Then Nolly, the smallest and bravest, stepped forward. She sniffed the popcorn carefully. Then, very slowly, she picked up one piece in her small paw and put it in her mouth. She chewed. Her eyes went wide. It is good," she exclaimed with surprise. "It is crunchy and warm and tastes like nothing I have ever eaten." The other cubs rushed forward. They grabbed pieces of popcorn and stuffed them into their mouths. The sound of crunching filled the room as 5 young predators discovered the joy of this simple human snack. "Amazing," said Ren with his mouth full. "This is better than hunting." "The texture is perfect," added Yira, grabbing more popcorn. "It breaks apart so easily. Like the bones of small prey, but softer." "I want more," demanded Miru. "Is there more? Can the machine make more?" Bora laughed and pressed the button again. The machine hummed to life once more, and fresh kernels began to pop. The cubs watched with joy, their tails wagging in perfect rhythm with each pop. This time, they were not scared. They were excited. They pressed their faces against the glass and watched every kernel transform. They cheered when a kernel popped particularly high. They made betting sounds about which kernel would pop next. "This is the greatest invention I have ever seen," Ren declared seriously. "Humans have created a way to make food appear without effort. No hunting, no chasing, no waiting. Just push a button and food comes out. It is like magic," Nolly agreed. "On our world, we work hard for every meal. We spend hours tracking and stalking. Sometimes we fail and go hungry. But here the food just comes." Bora sat down on the floor next to the cubs. She watched them enjoy the popcorn with a warm feeling in her heart. "Humans have many machines like this," she said. "We learned long ago that we could use tools to make life easier. We do not hunt like we used to. Now we grow food and store food, and prepare food in many different ways." The cubs listened with serious expressions. This was important information about human culture. This explained so much about why humans were the way they were. "Your people do not need to hunt," Yira said thoughtfully. "So you have time to do other things, like make stories, like build machines, like explore space." "Yes," Bora nodded. "When we do not have to worry about finding our next meal, we can think about other things. We can dream. We can create. We can imagine better futures." Ren sat back and looked at the popcorn machine with new understanding. This was not just a food machine. It was a symbol of everything human. Humans had taken control of their basic needs, and that freedom had allowed them to become something more. "Your people are clever," Ren said quietly. "Very, very clever. We, Velkai, are strong and fast and fierce. But you humans are smart. You found a different way to survive. And maybe your way is better." Bora reached out and gently touched Ren's furry head. "Not better," she said kindly. "Just different. The Velkai way has kept your people alive for thousands of years. There is great wisdom in your traditions. We can learn from each other." Ren looked up at her with grateful eyes. Then he grabbed another handful of popcorn and stuffed it in his mouth. Philosophy was good, but popcorn was better. The machine finished its second batch, and Bora filled another bowl. The cubs ate until their small stomachs were round and full. Popcorn pieces stuck to their fur. Butter made their whiskers shiny. They looked ridiculous and happy. "I never want to leave this place," Miru announced, lying on his back with his belly pointing up. "I will live here forever, with the food machine." "Me too," agreed Nali, curling up next to him. "This is the best day of my life." Bora smiled down at them. The peace talks were probably still going on. The adults were discussing territory and trade and treaties. But here in the recreation room, something even more important was happening. Young minds were opening. Different species were becoming friends, and it was all because of a simple popcorn machine. The cubs lay on the soft floor of the recreation room, their bellies full of popcorn. They had eaten so much that they could barely move. Butter and salt covered their fur, and small popcorn pieces were stuck to their whiskers. But they did not care. They were happy. Bora sat nearby, watching them with a gentle smile. She had enjoyed this day more than she expected. These young Velkai were curious and fun and full of energy. Taking care of them was not a burden at all. It was a joy. But Ren was not resting like the others. The eldest cub was sitting in front of the popcorn machine, staring at it with deep thought in his golden eyes. His mind was working on something important. The other cubs were just happy to eat, but Ren was thinking about what this machine meant. "Ensign Bora," Ren said in a serious voice. "May I ask you something?" "Of course, Ren. What is it?" Ren turned to look at her. His young face was unusually solemn. "On our world, we have sacred places. Holy places. Places where the spirits of our ancestors live. We visit these places to give thanks and ask for blessings. Do humans have sacred places too? Bora thought about this. Yes, we do. We have temples and churches and special monuments. Places that remind us of important things, places that help us feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. Ren nodded slowly. Then he stood up on all four legs and walked closer to the popcorn machine. He placed one small paw on the warm metal surface. His eyes closed, and he stayed very still for a long moment. The other cubs noticed what he was doing. They stopped playing and watched their elder brother with curious expressions. Nolly sat up, her ears pointing forward. Yira and Cass exchanged confused glances. Miru tilted his head, not understanding what was happening. When Ren opened his eyes again, there was something new in them, something bright and certain. I have made a decision, Ren announced in a formal voice. I, Ren of the Velkai, eldest of this pack, declare this machine to be sacred. The other cubs gasped. Bora's eyes went wide. Sacred? Yira repeated. But it is just a machine, Ren. It is not a holy place. No. Ren shook his head firmly. You do not understand. This machine is more than metal and glass. This machine represents everything that makes humans great. Look at what it does. It takes small seeds that cannot be eaten. It adds heat and time. And it transforms them into food that can feed many. He turned to face his siblings, his small body standing tall and proud. On our world, we must fight for every meal. We spend hours tracking prey. Sometimes we succeed. Sometimes we fail. We are always hungry, always worried about our next hunt. But humans have found a different way. They have built machines that create food without effort. They have freed themselves from the struggle of survival. Ren pointed at the popcorn machine. This machine is not just metal, it is the spirit of human creativity. It is proof that minds can overcome nature. It is a gift from human wisdom to all who are hungry. The other cubs stared at their brother with new understanding. When Ren explained it like that, the machine did seem special. It was not just making snacks. It was changing the rules of life itself. The humans do not even realize how amazing this is, Ren continued. To them, this is just a simple thing. A small entertainment. But to us, who have known only the hunt, this is like a miracle. This machine proves that life does not have to be a constant battle. There can be plenty for everyone. Nolly walked forward on her small legs and stood next to Ren. She looked up at the machine with new respect in her eyes. I think Ren is right, she said in her squeaky voice. This machine is special. We should honor it. One by one, the other cubs came forward. They formed a half circle around the popcorn machine, sitting on their back legs in a posture of respect. This was how Velkai showed honor to sacred things. This was how they prayed. Bora watched all of this with amazement. She did not know what to say. The cubs were treating a simple popcorn machine like it was a holy artifact. Part of her wanted to laugh. It was funny. It was absurd. It was a popcorn machine, for goodness sake, but another part of her understood. The cubs were not wrong. Humans had done something remarkable. They had used their minds to solve the basic problem of survival. They had invented agriculture and technology and machines that produced food. And that freedom had allowed humans to do so many other things. Art, science, space travel. All of it was possible because humans did not have to spend every moment hunting for their next meal. The popcorn machine was a symbol of that achievement. The cubs could see what humans often forgot. What should we call it? Asked Cass. Sacred things need names. The cubs thought about this carefully. Naming was important in Velkai culture. A name carried meaning and power. The right name could give a thing its true identity. We should call it the Endless Den, suggested Yira. Because it is like a den that always has food. No, said Miru. We should call it the Miracle Maker. Because it makes miracles from small seeds. What about the Sacred Feeding Den? Offered Nolly. It is sacred. And it feeds us. Both things are true. Ren thought about all the suggestions. Then he nodded slowly. The sacred feeding den, he repeated. Yes, that is the right name. It is sacred. It is a den of food, and it will feed all who come to it with respect. The cubs all nodded in agreement. The name was chosen. The machine had been officially blessed. Bora still did not know what to do. Should she tell them that it was just a popcorn machine? Should she explain that it was cheap technology that humans did not think much about? Should she break their beautiful belief? No. She decided to stay quiet. The cubs had seen something real and true. They had understood something about humanity that many humans themselves had forgotten. Why ruin that with facts? Ensign Bora, Ren said, turning to look at her. You showed us this sacred place. You taught us about human ways. For this, we are grateful. In our culture, when someone shows you a holy place, you owe them a great debt. He walked forward and bowed his small head. It was a formal gesture of deep respect. I name you Den Keeper, Ren said seriously. You are the guardian of the sacred feeding den. This is a great honor. You must protect this machine and share its blessings with all who visit. Bora blinked in surprise. She had just been given a title by Velkai cubs. It was unexpected and strange and wonderful. I accept this honor, she said, bowing her head in return. I will guard the sacred feeding den with care. The cubs made happy chirping sounds. They gathered around Bora, rubbing against her legs like cats, showing affection. Their small bodies were warm and soft, and Bora felt her heart fill with love for these ridiculous, wonderful creatures. Will you tell your people about this? Ren asked. Will you tell them that the Velkai have recognized the sacredness of this place? Bora imagined trying to explain this to Ambassador Tejo. The Velkai cubs declared our popcorn machine to be sacred and made me the official guardian. She could already see the confused look on his face, but she also imagined how the story would spread. Humans would find it funny at first. But then, maybe, they would start to think. They would remember how amazing their technology was. They would appreciate the small miracles they took for granted every day. Yes, Bora said with a smile. I will tell everyone. I will make sure the whole galaxy knows about the sacred feeding den. The cubs cheered with delight. Their tails wagged so fast that their whole bodies shook. This was a great day. This was a historic day. The Velkai and humans had found something to share. Not just peace talks and treaties, something deeper, something more true. A simple belief in the miracle of food that came without blood. Outside the recreation room, the stars continued to shine in the endless darkness of space. Somewhere on the station, adults were discussing serious matters of diplomacy, but here, in this small room, something more important had happened. 5 young cubs and 1 young human had built a bridge between worlds, and that bridge was made of popcorn. 3 days had passed since the Velkai delegation arrived at Station Hana. The peace talks were almost finished. Ambassador Tejo and the Velkai leaders had worked hard to find common ground. There were still some disagreements, but both sides were hopeful. A new era of friendship between humans and Velkai was beginning. But the biggest success of the visit had nothing to do with the official meetings. Tejo walked through the hallways of the station, reading a report on his datapad. He was tired but satisfied. The negotiations had gone better than expected. The Velkai were proud and fierce, but they were also honorable. They kept their word. A treaty with them would be strong and lasting. As he walked, he heard strange sounds coming from the recreation deck. Laughter, chirping, the sound of popping corn. Curious, Tejo changed direction and walked toward the sounds. What he saw made him stop in his tracks. The recreation room was full of people. Human crew members sat on chairs and on the floor. Among them were the 5 Velkai cubs, and also several adult Velkai who had taken a break from the talks. Everyone was eating popcorn. Everyone was watching a cartoon on the big screen. Everyone was happy. Ensign Bora stood near the popcorn machine, filling bowl after bowl. She handed popcorn to anyone who wanted some, human or Velkai. She was smiling so wide that her face must have hurt. Ambassador Tejo, called Ren, the eldest cub. He jumped up and ran toward Tejo on his 4 legs. You must come and join us. We are watching stories and eating from the sacred feeding den. The sacred feeding den? Tejo repeated with confusion. Yes. The machine that creates food from nothing. Ensign Bora is the den keeper. She showed us the miracle of human technology. It is the most wonderful thing we have ever seen. Tejo looked at Bora. She shrugged with an embarrassed smile. It is a long story, sir, she said. But the cubs really like popcorn. Kor, the leader of the Velkai delegation, walked over to Tejo. The tall warrior looked different today, less stern, almost relaxed. There was even a small piece of popcorn stuck to his chest fur. Ambassador, Kor said in his deep voice. My cubs have told me about their experience with your young ensign. They speak of a machine that creates food without hunting. They speak of moving pictures that tell stories for joy. They speak of sitting with enemies and sharing meals in peace. Kor paused, and something soft appeared in his fierce eyes. On my world, we teach our young to be strong and fierce. We teach them to fight and hunt and survive. But your ensign has taught them something new. She has taught them that there is another way to live, a way of plenty instead of struggle, a way of creation instead of destruction. Tejo did not know what to say. He had spent 3 days in careful diplomatic discussions, choosing every word with precision. But a young ensign with a popcorn machine had achieved more than all his speeches combined. The cubs want to bring this knowledge home, Kor continued. They want our people to learn about human technology. They believe it could change our world. We would be happy to share our technology, Tejo said carefully. That could be part of our treaty. Kor nodded slowly. Then, with great seriousness, he said something that Tejo would never forget. My people have heard stories about humans for many years. Some said humans were weak because they have no claws or fangs. Some said humans were cowards because they use machines instead of strength. But now I understand the truth. Humans are not weak. Humans are not cowards. Humans are survivors who found a different path. And that path has led them to the stars. Kor reached out and placed his large clawed hand on Tejo's shoulder. It was a gesture of deep respect among the Velkai. The Velkai are proud warriors. But even warriors must learn. We will learn from humans. Not how to fight, for we know that already. We will learn how to build, how to create, how to dream of things that do not yet exist. That is the true gift of your people. Tejo felt something stir in his chest. This was it. This was what diplomacy was really about. Not just signing papers and making agreements. It was about 2 different peoples truly understanding each other. And we will learn from you, Tejo said. The Velkai have courage and honor that we admire. Your traditions are ancient and wise. Perhaps we have grown too soft, too comfortable. Perhaps we need to remember what it means to fight for what matters. Kor smiled. It was the first time Tejo had seen him smile. It was a bit scary, with all those sharp teeth. But it was also genuine. Then we are already friends, Kor said. Let us make this official. They walked together to where the treaty papers were waiting. In front of all the crew members and Velkai visitors, they signed the historic agreement. Humans and Velkai were now allies. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, but the signing was interrupted by a loud cheer from the cubs. They had not been paying attention to the boring adult stuff. They were too busy watching the ending of their cartoon. The small creature won, Nolly shouted with joy. It tricked the big creature and escaped, just like Ensign Bora said. Bora laughed and gave the little cub a gentle pat on the head. I told you. In human stories, the clever ones often win. The celebration continued late into the night. More popcorn was made. More cartoons were watched. Humans and Velkai sat together, sharing food and stories and laughter. It was not what anyone had expected from a diplomatic visit. It was much, much better. When the time came for the Velkai to leave, the cubs did not want to go. They clung to Bora and begged to stay. They wanted more popcorn. They wanted more movies. They wanted to live in the sacred feeding den forever. But all good things must end. The cubs were gently carried back to their ship by their parents. But before they left, Ren turned to Bora one last time. "Den Keeper Bora," he said formally, "I will tell everyone on my world about you. I will tell them about the sacred feeding den and the miracles of human technology. And one day, I will return. I will bring gifts and respect, and we will watch more stories together." Bora felt tears forming in her eyes. She knelt down and hugged the small cub. His fur was soft and warm, and he smelled like butter. "I will be waiting, Ren," she whispered. "The den will always be here for you." 1 week later, Ambassador Tejo received a formal transmission from the Velkai homeworld. It was an official request from the Velkai High Council. "We request 1,000 popcorn machines for our world. Our cubs have spoken of the sacred feeding dens with great passion. Our people wish to experience this miracle for themselves. We will pay any price. We will offer any trade. Please send the machines as soon as possible." Tejo read the message 3 times. Then he started to laugh. He laughed until tears ran down his face. He called Ensign Bora to his office and showed her the message. Her face turned red with embarrassment and pride. "They really want 1,000 popcorn machines?" she asked in disbelief. "It seems the cubs were very convincing," Tejo said with a grin. "Congratulations, Ensign. You have done more for human Velkai relations than any diplomat in history. You have turned a snack food into a symbol of peace." The news spread quickly through the galaxy. The story of the Velkai cubs and the sacred feeding den became famous. Humans everywhere laughed at the idea of popcorn being treated as holy. But they also felt proud. Their simple invention had touched the hearts of an alien species. And on Velkai Prime, the first shipment of popcorn machines arrived to wild celebration. Cubs and adults alike gathered to witness the miracle. When the first kernels popped, the crowd cheered like they were seeing the birth of a star. A new tradition was born. On the anniversary of the treaty signing, both humans and Velkai would gather to eat popcorn and watch movies together. They called it Friendship Day. And it was the happiest holiday in the galaxy. As for Ensign Bora, she was promoted and given a new title. She became the official cultural ambassador to the Velkai. Her job was to share human customs with the predator species, and to learn Velkai customs in return. But no matter how high she rose, she always remembered the day 5 young cubs discovered the magic of popcorn. And every year, on Friendship Day, she would return to Station Hana, stand before the original popcorn machine, and make fresh batches for anyone who came to visit. The sacred feeding den was never empty again. And somewhere in the stars, a young Velkai named Ren grew up to be a great leader. He brought change to his world, teaching his people that strength was not just about claws and teeth. Strength was also about building and creating and sharing. He never forgot the human who showed him that lesson, and he always kept a popcorn machine in his den.